Hello, beautiful people. It's Gail Scott here again, and I am thrilled to bring you another message that came through a little bit ago. And this is kind of an interesting message that they've brought because they're actually now telling me that they're going to be creating some shifts for us individually. So the nature of this particular channeling is around our habits, and it's around how we are so unconscious in our habits. And so they started off by talking about the habit of drinking coffee, which is something that a lot of us can certainly relate to. For many of us, it's a necessity in our lives on a daily basis. We all know the kick that we can get when we have coffee. It gives us energy. And it's also something that we use in communication, in relationships with people. You know, you meet for coffee, you have coffee, and we talk over coffee. And so they've said it's this habit of having coffee together is really a social construct for us. And we've built it into the fabric of our life. And in a sense, it really is a mainstay of our existence, certainly here in the Northern Hemisphere and in North America. But, you know, Europe also has a huge habit of drinking coffee. So coffee, I think, is something that's really worldwide. And so as a species living on the planet on a day-to-day basis, what they have said to me is that, you know, coffee, in a sense, you could say it feeds your soul. And so now, why are we getting a message about drinking coffee? Well, it's not really about the coffee. They've mentioned that there are many, many things right now that are distracting us. Different things happening, different points of view, lots of things to focus on, lots of things that we think are important, and that pattern of distraction is actually becoming a habit. You know, watching the news, paying attention to all the things that people are saying, videos, articles, all different kinds of information that's kind of being really pushed onto us. And so we're making that a bit of a habit as well. And what they're saying to me is that there's a lot of changes coming. And so just to be aware that more and more changes will be coming down the pipeline. Now, the one big change, of course, is something that's very dear to my heart, and that is our sense of spirituality, our sense of self-consciousness, our sense of awareness of who we are and why we exist and how we live, both individually and together. And what they're saying is that in the past, religion was something that really embodied the structure of that for a really long time, and that many people have enjoyed that habit, that practice, that pattern of living in their lifestyle, much like a cup of coffee. And that religion has been built into the fabric of our lifestyle. However, what they're telling me is that there are going to be a lot more different things coming into our lives that will become part of our lifestyle now. And religion is just one of those things that we've been doing habitually by rote without really thinking about it, much like the cup of coffee. So they're saying, you know, we're not judging your patterns of habit, but they are saying that they're noticing that we as human beings, we don't have any sacredness around this particular pattern, this habit of drinking coffee. That we don't really express gratitude about it. We're not really conscious of the ceremonial act that we are giving ourselves with this habitual pattern of drinking coffee. And so what they're saying is, you know, you might want to consider bringing some more kind of ritual, ceremony, and sacredness into your everyday world with something as simple as a cup of coffee, because this is where we're going. This is where 5D is going to. This is where the energy of love comes in, because intentional living and conscious-centered living means that you have more awareness around what you're doing on an ongoing basis, meaning that you You notice the things that you're doing. You don't just do them without thinking anymore. And so that's kind of where we've been at for such a long time, that we haven't really had any forethought or any consciousness or any sense of gratitude about what we've been doing. And that the cup of coffee in the morning is like the perfect example for that. Where do you even think about it? And so they've said, it's a human construct experience, because this kind of thing doesn't happen to other life forms. They're telling me that this level of lack of consciousness, let's see. And so that, where does that come from? Well, as humans, when we cross over from spirit into human form, we lose our consciousness of ourselves. And of course, the journey is really back to ourselves throughout our entire human existence. But so we become unconscious to who we are, and that's deliberate. And that's happened over, many years, since the beginning of time, really, in order to give us this amazing experience that we can have in the returning to self and not knowing who we are. And so it's the game of life, as I've mentioned many times in my videos, and it's fun. And so we're learning and growing and experiencing and seeing, how can we find ourselves, how can we find our way back to ourselves, to love, and to the spirit. But what they're saying is now that that's going to be changing. That idea that we've been living with this unconscious way of being, this forgetfulness, amnesia, you could say, about who we really are, and that we will be able to create a new lifestyle for us, a different lifestyle, because we're going to have conscious awareness. And so they said, when you think about getting your cup of coffee or your cup of tea or making your smoothie or whatever it is that you do on a regular basis, where you don't really think about what you're doing, you probably go through the exact same series of events to make it happen. You go to the same place to order the coffee, or you make it in the same way. You don't really give it a second thought. You even, think about when you make plans with people to have coffee. It's just a really unconscious habit. And so the point that they're trying to make here is that this habitual pattern of action is going to change. And so what they're saying is that they're going to bring in some new energy for us, so that we can begin to recognize that, we can have thoughts around these experiences, these kinds of habits, and that we begin to question the nature of our lifestyle. And so for many people, questions might be all that you have. You maybe don't have any answers about that right now, but you might begin to question it. And so this is going to be a bit of a learning process for us as we shift ourselves out of the unconscious and into this, what they're calling conscious centered awareness of how we live our lives by rote, without thinking, without any awareness, into a brand new energy, into an energy of consciousness, and realizing that we can actually introduce some sacredness, some ritual, some ceremony into our lives every day, which will make it richer, more meaningful, more purposeful, more alive. And a cup of coffee is an easy way to start. So they're saying, when you start to think about the kinds of habits that you have and that you've experienced over time, where you don't really have a sense of what you're doing and how you're doing it, when you're doing it, they're telling me that they are going to begin to create an opening for us, an energy field that will allow us to sense ourselves in a way where we become known to ourselves. And so things like your morning coffee, you will begin to notice that you will have different thoughts around it. You'll have an awareness of gratitude, an appreciation of what you've got, an awareness of the experience that you're having in having that. And if anything, even a sense of reverence about this gratitude, and the understanding that all of a sudden you're now aware of this experience that you're having, whether it's your morning coffee or your walk with your dog or saying good morning to your family members. Like, it doesn't really matter, but there will be this shift in our consciousness. And so that gratitude and that familiarity will be seen with kind of new eyes. In fact, they're saying seen with a new you. Of course, it's not a new you. It's the same you it's always been. But let's say that the light's been turned on, where before you were going through the motions in the dark, kind of unaware of the experience that you were having and what it was like for you. And that in a sense, they're going to turn the light on and you'll begin to see yourself. You'll begin to notice yourself. You'll begin to have gratitude around certain experiences in your life, and you will bring reverence to it, and you will notice that it can be done more ceremonially, and that there's a ritual, and that is sacred around how you live your life and what you're doing on a daily basis. And they said, for some of you, it might not be anything to do with a cup of coffee. It could be how you treat others. It could be how you operate in the world. But this opening, this new energy that's coming in is to really assist us out of this darkness, out of this lack of awareness, and into the light, which sounds very kind of spiritually woo-woo, but it's not. It's really just an awareness of yourself. It's consciousness brought to life, and where you become more in the know about you. And I mean, there's nothing better than that. And it's a new concept. It's going to be a new concept for some of you who are really not aware of what you've been doing in life. And that sense of gratitude that they're going to begin to bring on as an awareness will create a very different world for us as humans, in our own communities, in our families, in our cities, and in our world. Because this energy is all part of the up-leveling of the vibrational energy on our planet. It's part of this new world. It's part of the new earth. It's part of the fifth dimension, although we're not there yet. This is just a simple stepping stone that they're going to assist us with to get there. So they're saying, as you move forward, begin to notice, begin to become more aware, pay attention, and you will find that your life will improve because you will feel more gratitude. You will have more moments where you feel more alive, more connected, more fulfilled, and more in touch with who you really are. And not just who you are, but who everyone is. And you will see the ripple effect that will have us all feel a bit more content, and that will bring hope for this new energy that's coming online onto our planet and into our new world, and hope for ourselves as a species. And so it seems like it's a small shift, becoming aware of the ritual of your coffee, or how you are not very grateful and becoming more grateful. But this small shift is actually going to create big change, because this new consciousness has the power of, the wave of an ocean. It has the power of the butterfly effect, where something happens on the other side of the world and it impacts something somewhere very, very far away. And so this is really going to create some change for us. And you don't have to really do anything except be open to it and be, available and willing to begin to be impacted by the idea that you could live more consciously, more centered, more alive, and that is really coming online for all of us. And you don't have to do anything for it. Just go with the flow, and allow yourself to be guided by this new light of consciousness. You may find your intuition stepping up, and you may find yourself getting little messages, through your own intuitive knowing, to augment this energy that's coming on. So just be with it. Just recognize that there might be some new knowings, as I like to call them, not just about you, but about everyone else. And also to recognize that this is the new energy of love. This is what it's about. And this is where we are going, my friends. This is where we are going. So this is a very beautiful message. with a very simple construct for us to understand, and really to begin to have some inspired hope for what is going to be possible for us as a beautiful species on this magnificent planet that we live on. So if you have enjoyed this, please subscribe, share, and if you would like to know about my weekly meditation program, which runs every Wednesday, please get in touch with me and I will give you all the details. For right now, I don't have anything else up online except information through Eventbrite and through my newsletter. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's been inspiring and hopeful for you. And until next time, I'm sending you much, much love. Thank you so much.